Alright, so the past couple months we've seen the rise of these podcasts led by current or former NBA players, and I've started listening to a few of them myself, with my favorites including Podcast P led by Paul George, and the Draymond Green Show led by, well, Warrior star Draymond Green. And there's so many others out there, and it's becoming like the cool thing to do, which I know podcasts in general, they're just becoming bigger and bigger by the day, but it seems like every time I go on the podcast app, there's some new podcast led by an NBA player. I mean, heck, Kevin Durant has a podcast, which I didn't know before I did the research for this video. While these podcasts are just straight up entertaining, hilarious, and at times very insightful to the business, these NBA player-led podcasts are genius for business opportunities that will live on long past these guys' playing career. Take an example like JJ Redick's podcast that he started a little before he retired, and now he's been doing it after he retired, and he's been so successful. And honestly, he's going to be able to do this for the rest of his life if he wants to. While yes, Redick is also an analyst on ESPN, on his podcast, he can say whatever the heck he wants. It is an independent thing. It is his own. He can do what he wants with it. Draymond Green said the reason he started podcasting is so that he can have business opportunities for the rest of his life. Because while yes, none of these guys are struggling financially, you always want money flowing in. If you're an entrepreneur, you want money flowing in at all times, and podcasting is a great way to do that. And if these guys are making what most podcasters that are getting the same number of listens that they are getting, holy cow, it's a great side hustle. Because I've seen podcasters make up to, I don't know, I think the biggest I saw was like over $1 million a year, which for these guys is like chump change. But like still, $1 million is better than $0. These podcasts are great because you can take sponsors, you can get fans buying merch. I mean, I'm sure that if Paul George hasn't released merchandise for his Podcast P podcast, he probably will. And I'm going to use Paul George a lot in these examples because that's the one that I've watched the most. I mean, I've just been watching like on my way to practices, or anytime I'm going anywhere in the car, I'm usually listening to Paul George's podcast. I really like it. I like the guests he has. And that's what I wanted to talk about is guests. Because here's an advantage that these NBA player-led podcasts have an advantage over someone like you or I, and we wanted to start a podcast. Here's the difference. NBA players have a super easy time getting guests. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just reality. Because, like, who wouldn't want to go on an NBA player's podcast? I mean, like, look at Paul George. He's had DeMar DeRozan, Mikal Bridges, Klay Thompson, Tyrese Halliburton. They're not NBA scrubs. These guys are really solid, if not stars of the league. But look at Paul George himself. He's a multi-time All-Star. He's one of the best players in the league. And at the time, he was the top 6 player in the league, arguably. So he has a resume where he can grab guests. And like, it's very easy for these guys to network because they see each other all the time. I mean, a lot of episodes for Podcast P were recorded during the Summer League in Las Vegas. I mean, I think that's when Brandon Miller was interviewed. I think it was when Mikal Bridges got interviewed. I mean, there were several players that Paul George interviewed during his time in Las Vegas for the Summer League. So it's really easy for them to get guests. And that's great. Like, it gives us more content. These podcasts are becoming a big thing. I think they are going to ultimately end up replacing these podcasts led by normal sportscasters like that are hired by ESPN because these seem authentic. It's real guys talking about real things that go on in the NBA. And it's not just in basketball. Take the New Heights podcast by the Kelsey brothers, Jason and Travis Kelsey of the NFL. That podcast is amazing. I love that podcast. But they can talk about the NFL from their perspective because they're in it. They are inside of that world. The NBA is no different. Draymond Green, Paul George, Gilbert Arenas, JJ Redick, Kevin Durant, any of these guys that have podcasts, they're inside of the NBA world or did live inside the NBA world for 10 plus years. So they have millions of stories to tell, millions of people that they are in contact with. I think these podcasts are a win-win. It's a win for the players because they get to network with people and they get to tell their real life stories. And it's a win for us fans because we get to see the entertainment and the comedy, and just seeing these guys that we see on TV, that we see all over social media, just seem like normal human beings. I'm excited to see where these NBA player-led podcasts are going to end up.